Guten Abend. Guten Abend. Welcome to this Great Wine Capitals webinar, the last of a first series of 3 webinars that we have organized presenting our Great Wine Capitals destination. The first ones were Porto, Portugal, and Bilbao, Rioja in Spain. The Great Wine Capitals Global Network was founded in 1999 on a Bordeaux initiative. It gathers 11 members around the world in some of the most prestigious wine regions. One of our objectives is to promote our wine destinations of excellence towards visitors and to create partnerships between our members to develop our wine and tourism industries and communities. Great Wine Capitals has endorsed a network of travel experts in each of our regions based on their recognized knowledge and experience in wine and business tourism. I'm happy to introduce one of them today, and I will right away give the floor to Matthias Juncker from the Pope Reisen agency in Mainz, Germany. Enjoy.
Good evening, everybody. This is Matthias calling from Mainz. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is well and safe and sound. Yeah, let's start with our webinar very soon. I'm just starting to share the screen. Give me a second. And hopefully now you can see our screen. And I'm just starting with the traditional Mainz local slang, good evening, guten Abend. That's our introduction for a very warm welcome and the good evening for this webinar tonight, for which we have invited and are very pleased that you are here. So thank you very much for joining. The little leprechauns, which you can see, are our local heroes. They are the so-called Mainzelmännchen, and they put a smile into the face of each and every of our inhabitants here in our region. And you must come and explore and try to find them. And the webinar also shows where to find them, actually. Before we start, let me give you some technical introductions as well. I will present our destination in the next 45 minutes or so, and then thereafter we have a little bit of time for some questions and answers. And if you actually have any question during the presentation, please use the chat or the Q&A function, as we have muted your microphones so that I can't hear you. And we have a colleague of mine, Anne-Kathrin, she's joining us and assisting me tonight, and she records all the notes, and we will answer them as best as possible at the end of the presentation. And when we finish the evening, we have a small questionnaire about our follow-up. And if you're interested in what I have shown you and you want some more details about it, please indicate and leave your okay. So to use your mail address, which you have provided, and we will be happy to get back to you and discuss all your individual requirements. Okay, that's it about for the technical introduction. Let me switch to the next screen, where I want to give you a brief introduction of what you are able to see tonight. First of all, we explain a little bit about who we are, Pope Reisen, as well as our sister company, Wedgwood Germany. I'll show you where we are situated. And then, of course, we want to present our destination a little bit more with all what's a lot of what is possible in terms of touristic program. First of all, with the city of Mainz, with some accommodation samples, some restaurants and venues, as well as activities. And then, of course, the surrounding area of Rheinhessen, again, with the same topics, accommodation, restaurant, activities. The finish of the presentation will be a very short overview of a sample itinerary. And then, as just mentioned, we have some time for questions and answers. All right, so who we are. Pope Reisen is a tour operator founded in 1965, so basically a dinosaur in terms of tourism. but we were still innovative right from the beginning. We organized one of the first charter flights for football fans ever happened in Germany, for our football fans of Mainz 05. Our company owner arranged the first long-haul travel into quite exotic destinations. China at that time, 1965, that was all very new to the market. We were one of the first who arranged company incentives, and during the 60s and 70s and beginning 80s, the company was one of the largest corporate travel agencies here in the Rhine-Main area. That changed a little bit today. We are handling groups and FITs to worldwide cultural as well as sport events. We arrange technical excursions, and we have an own MICE department, which arranges MICE business for German companies. And that's important for you. We have special theme group travel, such as architecture, for example, architecture excursions, train excursions. We have specialized in music because we have a cooperation with our local radio station here. And of course, we have wine travel. And then our sister company is important for our local wine tourism here. That's Wedgwood, Germany. This is our incoming department operating since 2005. We are a member of the German Federal Association of German DMCs. And we have MICE experience with groups from 10 to 650 people, not only locally here, but also all over Germany. And together, us two companies, we handle leisure as well as corporate wine groups and FITs as well. Of course, as I said, local, but also worldwide. And we do that with a lot of passion and expertise. We are located in the center of Europe, as you can see on the little red dot here. This is Mainz, as well as the almost center of Germany. And if we zoom a little bit closer, we have the city of Mainz to the north of our area. We have the whole surrounding area of Rheinhessen, which is basically surrounding from Mainz to the borders of the area for Worms, for example. This is about an hour travel time, and Bingen on the other side, this is about half an hour away, 45 minutes away from Mainz, traveling by car or coach. We have the most important villages, which we later on mentioned sometimes, which is Oppenheim and Nierstein. Nierstein you probably have heard of because it's one of the most famous wine regions in Germany with the Roter Hang, the red slope. We have the city of Worms to the south of the area, heavy in history with the German legend Siegfried. And we have the city of, or the village of Alzey in the center of the area of Rheinhessen. And we have the villages of Bingen and Ingelheim to the northwest. And as you can see, everything is stretched along the river Rhine, which is crossing the area from south to the north. And just to explain a little bit, when the river is going here in this part, this is the famous so-called Middle Rhine Valley, the part of the Rhine with the steep sides and a lot of castles. So that's not far away, but I will mention that later on as well. All right, so let's start with the presentation for the city of Mainz. That's 2,000 years of history, which meets modern lifestyle and a very warm and welcoming atmosphere in the city. And to give you a little bit of an impression of the city, as well as some sights and some history, we have prepared a little movie for you. I'm starting that now. Enjoy and have fun.
In Mainz upon the River Rhine, the three letters www are not only understood as the World Wide Web, they also stand for a specialty of Mainz, Weg, Wurst und Woi, a bread roll, a special pork sausage, and a glass of wine. This culinary trinity is a sign of the sociability and congeniality of the city. Mainz is the capital of the state of Rhineland-Palatinate, and at the same time the state's biggest city with about 200,000 inhabitants. If you want to get to know Mainz, you have to immerse yourself into the history of the city. During Roman times, Mainz was called Mogontiacum and was a big castellum, an important military base. Many archaeological findings tell us about this period. The cathedral, situated in the center of the city, was built over 1,000 years ago, a symbol of the rise of Mainz in the medieval times. Many electors and archbishops ruled over the city and held good contacts with Rome. The most famous son of Mainz was not a sovereign, but a craftsman. Johannes Gutenberg is commonly celebrated as the inventor of the printing press and thus the father of mass information. Since the middle of the 15th century, his large-scale prints quickly became available to a wider population and thus gave Europe access to new knowledge. In 1999, Gutenberg was honored Man of the Millennium. But also the French have shaped the development of Mainz. The broad boulevards, the lifelines of the city, date back to the Napoleonic era in the 18th century. But in the old part of the city, one still finds old, narrow and winding medieval lanes. Time seems to have come to a halt in these picturesque quarters. During the Industrial Revolution, Mainz continued to prosper. A reminiscence of this era are the underground tunnels and cellars of Kupferberg SA, a sparkling wine factory. Still today, you can go on the cellar tour, which takes you down 7 layers beneath the surface to more than 1 million bottles of champagne. Another treasure of Mainz can be found in the Church of St. Stephan. In the 1980s, the French-Russian artist Marc Chagall has designed the windows of this church, a wonderful display of light and color. However, as a student city, Mainz is still today a vibrant town and thus remains forever young. Its wine taverns invite you to linger for a while. Don't miss the jolly hustle and bustle of the Johannes Festival in June and have a closer look at the Fazenacht the Carnival fountain. This artwork displays numerous scenes and motifs of the city's foolish activities during the carnival season.
Oops. I hit the button a little bit too fast. Sorry for that. To discover what we have just seen, we of course need a little bit of accommodation, and I want to show you a couple of the most nicest ones as well. We'll start with our flagships, which are the Hyatt Regency Hotel, which is sitting right on the banks of the River Rhine. And you can see that some of the historic architecture from the 17th and 18th century has been introduced in or included into the hotel building. Some 268 rooms and meeting rooms for up to 500 people make this hotel a very nice conference facility as well. We have, just a few meters down, we have the Hilton Hotel, which is also sitting on the banks of the Rhine. It's just been renovated with some 431 rooms, so that's even larger and quite nice as well. And this one is neighboring directly the large conference center of the Rheingoldhalle, which I come to that later on. So these are our flagship hotels. run by the international chains. We also have some very nice family-run hotels, which we always like very much. The Favorite Park Hotel is one of the nicest ones, with a great beer garden outside and Michelin-starred kitchen inside, which comes with 145 rooms and also 15 meeting rooms, so good conference facilities. We have the Novotel in Mainz, which is actually sitting right next to the Kupferberg manufacturer, to which we come a little bit later. 217 rooms, so also not too small. And we have one of the most interesting hotels, which is brand new, the Me and All Hotel in Mainz. They are also a Great Wine Capital Award winner from last year. And you can see from the images, the hotel is very contemporary, has a sort of retro chic. They have very nice and interesting co-working spaces on their ground floor. And almost every evening they have a DJ playing some local loungy tunes for guests being on site. So that's a very interesting hotel. We have also brand new Mood Hotel in Mainz. They don't have a lot of meeting space, but 279 rooms, so quite large, therefore quite good for larger tourist groups, for example. And then a little bit outside of the city, we have the Atrium Hotel, and they also have huge conference facilities. So that hotel is very good for a seminar where you really need to concentrate on what you are talking about. They have 150 rooms, but 2,000 square meters of space for maximum of 600 people inside. And then for smaller groups, we have the Intercity Hotel, which is sitting right next to the main train station. So great connections by train, but also by car. And as I said, just half an hour away from Frankfurt Airport, also very close to the next airport, international one. This is a typical business hotel with 200 rooms and 8 meeting rooms for maximum 150 people, and a quite interesting shape, as you can see. Coming to some restaurant options for your dining experiences. As mentioned, we have the Favorite Park Hotel, and they have a Michelin-starred kitchen with a very young and innovative chef, all set in quite a luxury setting. So that's definitely on the forefront of our restaurant options. And in comparison, or in opposite of the contemporary setting at the Favorite, we have Polles Häuschen, a very small house in one of the villages surrounding Mainz, also Great Wine Capital Award winning. And you can see very nicely the cozy country-style kitchen, cozy country-style interior, which they have. The kitchen is very regional, and they are working very closely with a lot of Rheinhessen estates, wine estates, and are presenting constantly new wines. And so this is why they actually have won the award from the Great Wine Capital, because of their close connection to the wine estates. Very impressive, and probably one of the most interesting restaurants in Mainz is the Heilig Geist. This used to be a hospital in medieval times and almost has a church-like architecture. It was disused as a brothel at some stage, but now, since a couple of years now, it's a very important restaurant in the city center. Always extremely busy with students, with locals, with tourists which are coming around. So definitely well worth a visit. If not only to be seen in the architecture. A little bit in opposite is, for example, the Bootshaus, which is sitting right next to the River Rhine. Again, also quite close to the Hyatt and Hilton Hotel, for example. And they have a really nice first floor event location for up to 200 people. And you can see from the picture here on the lower picture that the views onto the river are really fantastic, and the inside is very contemporary. And again, in opposite, we have spread all over the city several small and rustic wine taverns. This one here is an example of them, the Weinhaus Michel, a very nice one. Like these, you can find these wine taverns all over the city, and each one is slightly different. But what they all have is always a very nice and good selection of the local wine producers, as well as quite simple, but very interesting and very nice local kitchen. You can see in the picture here, the so-called Spundekäse is what we call it. It's a fresh cheese specialty, which is only being served here in Mainz, with some fresh bread. And in the summertime, you can enjoy that, of course, also outside. And that's really nice. And a lot of locals are going here for their every evening chat. So this is really interesting to come here. Coming to the venues, as I have just mentioned, the Hilton Hotel, which is sitting right next to the main conference location. This is the Rheingoldhalle, our large event area. Sitting also in the city center. The Hilton Hotel is basically right here. The shadow, which you can see, is already the part of the Hilton, and that has space for some 2,400 delegates in actually 2 large rooms and several side rooms. Something which is almost hidden and not to be noticed when you don't know it, but also catering or space actually for 600 people is the Frankfurter Hof, with a very nice lit foyer, as well as a huge area in the back of the location. And then another one, which is the Kutz, the cultural center of Mainz, in a former industrial building, for up to 1,000 guests. This is the main concert location and music concert location of Mainz, which is also quite large, as you can see, and has this very nice industrial architecture. And probably the largest event location, versatile event location, which we have, is the Hall 45, also in a former industrial hall, which has space for up to 2,000 people. The most iconic one is probably the Electoral Palace, which is also sitting next to the River Rhine. The main hall, which you can see here, has space for up to 800 people standing, a little bit less, you can see in the picture down here. Everybody in Germany knows the Electoral Palace because this is the setting of one of the most interesting or famous TV shows, which we have every year in February during the Carnival. That's Mainz, bleibt Mainz, wie es singt und lacht. This is the presentation of the Mainz Carnival, which is very famous, and everybody, or a lot of people in Germany, are watching this actually. We also have some smaller classical event locations, coming back to the Kupferberg again, the Kupferberg cellars. They have several rooms of different sizes. This probably is the most interesting one, the so-called Grape Room, which can host 40 people for a reception and some 25 for a seated dinner. Very exclusive, actually. They also have an attached very good restaurant, which has also been Great Wine Capital Award winning. So a very versatile location. And, or if you want, you can hire a full stadium. The stadium of Mainz 05, which is still playing the German Premier League. They had a fantastic season this year, catching up and remaining in the Premier League. Mainz is very proud of their football club, and they have very interesting locations inside the stadium. You can hire either a lounge if you want, or if you have a lot more guests than the main foyer parts, can also be rented for bigger events. Coming to the activities of Mainz, a must is certainly to discover the city center and the city itself with a city tour or during a city tour. We have several options for that. I mentioned a couple of them. Of course, a classical one with a trained Mainz tourist guide introducing to the city. If you don't want to walk, we can also hire one of these city trains. They are used by cruise ships quite a lot, but it can be an option to drive around the city in safe weather conditions, for example. Or if you have more active guests, we have quite a number of segways in the city center, which can be rented for a segway excursion to the city. And smaller groups can also be handled during a food tour, where shops are being passed by, where small food examples of local produce can be sampled. So that's quite interesting and quite nice as well. A must almost is also a visit of the Gutenberg Museum. We've just seen in the movie our famous son of the city who invented the printing and thus said goodbye to medieval times and went into a new era. All of that was invented here in Mainz. There's a whole museum dedicated around this person. And we can either do a guided tour in the museum, where you can see in one of the treasury rooms one of the first Bibles which have been printed by Gutenberg, the original Bible printed by him, which is a great treasure for Mainz. And if you want to do something with a hands-on activity, there's a print shop in the museum where you can do some printing, print testing and printing yourself if you want, if you have a little bit more of an active group. Very interesting also is the Mainz Underground. Also in the movie we have mentioned that there's a lot of underground and caves in the hills of the city. There's a company actually, or a club, which is arranging tours through these underground systems, which is actually very interesting because the history spans from quite a time from the very first beginnings when Mainz was important as a fortress until the Second World War, when this was used as shelters during air raids. Of course, we are a great wine capital city, and wine and sparkling wine tastings should not be missed. We have a lot of different options to arrange something like this. We have the Rheinhessen Winothek, which is located in one of the larger restaurants in the city, the Proviantamt, where wine tastings can be arranged. We can arrange wine tastings during a city tour, for example, in smaller shops where we set up some tastings. And again, Kupferberg, they are really very versatile for us. We can certainly arrange a sparkling wine tasting in their cellars with a tour around and some introduction to the sparkling wine production. Most important, or also basically something which really needs to be done, is to have a Saturday in the program and visit the famous market of Mainz, which is happening around the cathedral with the wonderful setting with these nice houses in the back on the one side and the big, huge cathedral on the other side. And you can stroll along the food stalls and have a look what's being on offer. But the most important thing is the so-called market breakfast, the Marktfrühstück, which is unfortunately not happening at the moment due to Corona regulations in the city. But this is very, very popular, happening on a Saturday morning. The locals are coming, they buy their glass of wine from one of the local estates. And every Saturday we have a different estate who is arranging the wines and presenting their wines. We have a lot of different food stalls around. You can buy a cup of coffee, you can buy some fried fish, you can buy, of course, your sausage, the pork sausage, as well as rolls. And then you just sit down with the locals and have a chat. And after 1 or 2 or 3 glasses of wine, the world is your friend. This is really, it's a wonderful atmosphere, and it's definitely a great experience. As mentioned, we have different kinds of groups, and the river as the central binding part of the city can also be incorporated in any kind of program. With boat tours, for example, we can arrange more relaxing ones with some food and wine and drinks on board, where you just drive along the river. Or we can get in one of these power boats for some speed freaks. And Mainz is also very important for the Rhine cruise ships. It's often a departure or finishing point of the cruise ships. And from here you can start your cruises. And it's of course a great program opportunity to arrange a cruise for a group or even single guests, and then do some extension programs in the city of Mainz and Rheinhessen, of course arranged by us. Then we have several excursion options from Mainz. One is definitely just 45 or an hour away into the famous Rhine Valley, the Middle Rhine Valley, with all the castles and steep hills here, which is very impressive. Actually, it's UNESCO awarded, and we can arrange that either by coach, for example, or parts of it can also be done on the boat as well. You can do an excursion to Frankfurt, which is 45 minutes away from Mainz, the city center of Frankfurt, which is our Manhattan. Frankfurt has a very interesting own history, which can be explored. It has fantastic museums as well. And it's also great for shopping, because most millionaires of Germany having their residency here in Frankfurt. And so you have quite a number of very nice and upmarket shops in the city. And also just a little bit more than an hour away is probably one of the most important and well-known cities of Germany, which is Heidelberg. So very close by, which can easily be done in a nice day excursion. And you can explore the small streets of Heidelberg, and certainly the very romantic castle. Changing the topic again, you should definitely come if you're interested and visit our festivals. The most important of it is our so-called Fazenacht the Carnival, which is happening in February every year, which is turning upside down the city completely. The people are getting dressed up in costumes, and everybody is out on the street and having a party when the parade on the so-called Rose Monday is going through the city. And I always tell my clients that in Munich, we have the Oktoberfest, but this is a small area with quite large tents where the people are getting having a party and having a good time. But in Mainz, we have the whole city who is having a party and getting drunk. This is it's an absolutely amazing atmosphere, and wonderful to explore and joining the party. If you want to have it a little bit more down to earth and not that much of festivity, you can join the Weinmarkt. In this festival, we have the local vintners, the estates who are setting up tents in our largest park, which we have in Mainz. Actually, the Favorite Park Hotel is very close to this park, neighboring, so would be a great accommodation option if you want to explore this. And then again, you walk from stall to stall, you buy your glass of wine, sit down and have a chat and explore some food and having a good time. Absolutely relaxing and wonderful atmosphere. Or very important as well is the so-called Rhine in Flammen, which is a firework display all along the River Rhine on 1 or 2 dates during the year. Our closest is happening in Bingen, which is still part of Rheinhessen. And there is a boat parade actually, which is running along the River Rhine, and above the boats, all the cities along the river are showing their firework displays, and this is very, very impressive to experience. It's a big festival where a lot of people are coming, and if you want, you can hire your own boat. That needs to be arranged well in advance, but you can also join boats which are traveling anyway when you have smaller groups. All right, that was it about Mainz, a very brief overview. Changing the area now, we are coming to the area of Rheinhessen. We have seen in the map that the area of Rheinhessen is surrounding Mainz. We call it the Tuscany of Germany. It's the county of 1,000 hills. And again, we have a movie for you with some impression, sites and history, and hopefully I'm not hitting the button wrong again. And so enjoy the movie.
There's a region where the sun is a little warmer, where life takes place at a slower pace, where the greatest treasures are not kept in a safe, but stored in cellars. This region is called Rheinhessen. It is also known as the Land of 1,000 Hills, offering something for everybody to explore. Nature at its best, interesting cities, and cultural highlights. So take your time and visit a new highlight every day. The past centuries have shaped Rheinhessen. Many of these ancient stories are so exciting that even today they captivate visitors. The mystic church on the hill Petersberg, of which only the ruins of its underground crypt can still be visited. The signal tower of Sprendlingen, one of many which were erected during the Napoleonic era, forming a communication network. And Oppenheim with its labyrinth system, 40 kilometers of tunnels underneath the surface dating back to the medieval times, which still have not revealed all their secrets. These highlights and many more are waiting for you to be explored. And when, after so much adventure, you get hungry, you don't have to search for a long time. Dining at a rustic farmhouse, at a picnic site, or at a top-quality restaurant, in Rheinhessen there's something for every taste. A personal time out also offer the many guest houses and hotels with their individual flair, often to be found behind old walls, refreshment for your body and soul. And in the evenings, there's time to visit one of the many wine festivals to meet old and new friends. By the way, wine is the secret star of Rheinhessen. The climatic conditions of long summers and mild winters are ideal prerequisites for viticulture. With more than 25,000 hectares of vineyards and over 6,000 winemakers, Rheinhessen is the biggest wine-growing region of Germany. Maybe not the biggest on the international level, but Rheinhessen winemakers prefer to rely on quality rather than quantity. When here at the Roter Hang Vineyard, the River Rhine regulates the temperature and the grapes at the steep slopes soak up the sun, then superlative, distinctive and unmistakable wines are produced. Today there is a new generation of winemakers who continue their parents' legacy, but with fresh ideas and the courage to accept change. And they are eager to produce wine of the highest quality. These family-run winemaking farms work hand in hand, thus making Rheinhessen so unique. It is not without reason that here the wine is called the captured sun. So, when are you going to enjoy your glass of the captured sun? Rheinhessen is looking forward to welcome you.
Okay, so here we are again. I just noticed we are, yeah, a little bit, I need to rush a little bit through the next pages to keep the timing. Some options again for program possibilities in Rheinhessen, starting with accommodation. We have a very nice hotel with vintage charm, the Altes Amtsgericht in Oppenheim, for example, which is situated in the former Courts of Justice building. We have a modern option, for example, which is the Rhine Hotel Kaisergarten in Alzey and in the center of Rheinhessen, run by a Windner family. We have, for example, as an example of a lot of very different and small countryside hotels, the Landhotel im Klostereck, which is located in Flohenheim, a very small village, but quite active. Quite interesting architecture very often, and often quite modern and contemporary as well. Very nice is Jordan's Untermühle, for example, also Great Wine Capital Award winning. And they run a very nice wellness concept as well, and have a huge wellness activities. And they are just extending their premises and building some chalets as accommodation option. We have the Papa Rhein Hotel, which is also interesting for larger groups with 114 rooms, and absolutely fabulous location right on the banks of the River Rhine in Bingen. And you can see here around the corner, we have the Middle Rhine Valley starting. So very interesting location as well, and interesting hotel concept. And in Ingelheim, also quite new one, the IBB Hotel, which is sitting opposite to architectonically very interesting building, which I show you a little bit later on. We have, of course, very interesting and very good restaurants in the whole area. Another Michelin star award-winning one, the Kaupers Kapellenhof, which you really need to know where it is. Actually, you won't see it from the outside. It's a very small village. But they are running a very, very creative kitchen there in an old transformed barn. We have another Great Wine Capital Award winner, the Gut Leben am Moorstein, which has a very fine dining, very good fine dining restaurant in a former villa. We have only during a couple of weeks during the year, and with a very basic and basic kitchen, we have a lot of different estates which transform into small restaurants. And we call them Straußwirtschaften. They are not a proper restaurant because they are only open for a few weeks, but it's a great, interesting concept, and we are happy to arrange dinners there as well. I mentioned the IBB Hotel. This is the building which is opposite of it, one of our premier venues in the area of Rheinhessen, the so-called King in Ingelheim, with quite striking architecture and very large for up to 1,000 people if you want. Smaller one, but architectonically also very interesting, is Wasem's Guter Kloster Engeltal in Ingelheim, with modern architecture elements built into a former monastery, different options of venues. We mentioned Gut Leben am Moorstein again, which has a vault underneath the villa, which can be transformed into a very contemporary location like this, for example. It looks very striking. And also for larger groups is the Hofgut Laubenheimer Höhe, which is sitting on the edge of a wine hill, which you can see here. And if you have a very good eye, you can see in the very back here, you can see the high-rise buildings of Frankfurt. So this is how far the view goes from up here. They have a very nice and quite large barn festival hall, which caters for up to 380 people. When it comes to the activities, we need to mention, first of all, our wine and culture ambassadors, and you must book one of these, one of them for your guiding to explore Rheinhessen. They are the guarantee to that the group or your guests are actually being introduced properly and have a full experience of the area with a lot of explanations en route. The most important activity you can do in Rheinhessen is hiking. And we do that on specific so-called Hivel tours. Hivel is the slang language in German, or in our German actually, for a hill. So Hivel is a hill. So it's a hill tour basically, and there are some 9 or 10 of them which are specifically marked, very nicely marked, and they run through really wonderful and romantic countryside, very different countryside as well, so constantly changing and really nice to explore. Into the Hivel tour, we can incorporate wine tastings, for example, here at the so-called Winzeralm, the Windnersalm, which is also offering quite nice views into the countryside, when the people can relax and sit down there. Or we arrange something next to a Trullo. And no, we are not in Italy here. We are in Rheinhessen. That's a very interesting architecture concept here. With some Italians who have set up this, this Trullo. The wine tastings can be served from the Weinlaster, for example, the wine truck, which can arrange at nearly every point the wine tasting. We have tractor-drawn carriages which are driving around in the countryside, which is quite interesting. But of course, we can also go to several of the estates. As mentioned, we have over 6,000 of them, and some of them are really important and also important for architecture lovers, for example, like this one here, the Estate Törle, Great Wine Capital, award-winning last year, which are happy to arrange your wine tasting. Or at Ingelheim, for example, in the Winzerkeller, also a very interesting location. By the way, also quite interesting for a Great Wine Capital dinner, where we arrange a meal in several sets, and each course is a specialty from one of the Great Wine Capital cities, and joined, of course, by their local wines. So that's a very interesting dining concept. We have cycling, also very important, here on the Rheinterrassenweg, just below the red slope, the Rote Hang, the important wine growing area. This can be done with electric bikes or normal pedaled one. Golfing is also very good. We have an 18-hole parcours in the area with wonderful views. But you can also try the a little bit simplified swing golf in the village of Selbsen. That can be arranged for 50 people maximum. That's a little bit simpler golf with larger balls and shorter parcours. Interesting concept, as well as the wine safari. We arrange a wine tasting tour on a Land Rover, with the estate owner joining and driving, and he stops here and there, and you have a glass of wine, and the local viticulture is being explained. The tour lasts 2.5 hours, for example, and can be arranged for 8 people maximum in the one car, but we can mix that with other program elements and also cater for larger groups, for example. Another group activity on such a tour, for example, can be to meet the Sieversheimer Kräuterhexen. That's the herb witches. These are 3 ladies living in the village of Sieversheim, and they have discovered the secrets of herbs, and are more than happy to explain that to you. A very modern and new concept is a classical escape game. An estate, the Domhof in Guntersblum, has transformed one of their cellars into an escape room, and within 60 minutes, the group needs to try to get out of this cellar by working on several riddles and trying to get keys, and well, finally getting out of this room, whilst some interesting information about wine growing in the area is being explained. We mentioned in the movie the underground tour in Oppenheim. This is also a very, almost a must when you come to the village of Oppenheim. Very interesting to locate. walking through these underground tunnels have been erected in medieval times to hide from enemies, but also have been used for storage of wines. And similar to Mainz, also Rheinhessen has their local festivities, and this one is a very nice one. It's the Schlemmerwanderung, which is happening twice a year in Oppenheim, where again wine estates are setting up their stalls right in the wine estate areas, and you walk from stall to stall. You have a glass of wine, you have again some food. You see, this is always the same concept basically, but it's working well and attracting a lot of people. But you can also join one of the local village Kerb. We call these village festivals Kerb. This one here is, for example, next to a church ruin in one of the 2 or 3 local wine estates are serving their wine, and very nice to sit and relax and enjoy the scenery. A bigger festival is the so-called Nibelungenfestspiele in Worms, which is set up every year in August next to the big cathedral in Worms. And this is also very interesting for larger tourist groups, because we can arrange arrangements actually with dinner in the park, for example, and then later on joining the show of this festival. And it's always, or usually always, around the legend of Siegfried. And the image here you can see was one of the shows, or was the show in 2018. This year is a little bit different. It's happening about Luther, but from next year we have Siegfried again. The final one, final presentation page is a small excursion into a sample itinerary, just to give you some theoretical input. Here is a 3-day tour west of Mainz and Rheinhessen with, for example, 3 nights at the Me & All Hotel in Mainz, a guiding by wine cultural ambassador doing the whole 3 or 4-day program actually, with a walking tour of Mainz, an underground tour in Oppenheim, of course, including the transfers all the time, a hike on the Rhein-Terrassenweg or a hill tour with a picnic en route, different wine tastings in various estates. For example, a very interesting one is a color tasting to explore how different wine tastes when the surrounding color is being changed. And the sparkling wine tasting, which I've mentioned at Kupferberg, and a full board for all days with lunches and dinners in some of the previously mentioned restaurants. We can arrange that for a smaller group, for example, with minimum 15 participants for just as an example price for 800, to give you a little bit of an indication, for 879 euros. But this is, of course, it's just one number. We can arrange nearly everything according to your budget and your group sizes, and then be very flexible in that. This is really just a very small part of it. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. If we have any questions, it would be great if we just jump in, and I let my colleague Ann-Kathrin jump in and ask if there's anything which can I answer.
Yes, we had one question from Victorio asking, please suggest some nice traditional beer houses in Frankfurt.
Frankfurt is half an hour away from Mainz, or 45 minutes away from Mainz, and Frankfurt has a brewery, the Binding brewery, but Frankfurt is not that much common for beer, I have to say. Frankfurt is very important. We have the apple wine, which is the most important drink for Frankfurt. But there are, of course, several restaurants in Frankfurt, but we also have them in Mainz, where some beer is served. Mainz also has a small brewery in the city center, and here the so-called Proviantamt, for example, is a very nice place. And we also have a brewery with very good beer in the countryside of Rheinhessen. They don't have their own restaurant, but the beer can be purchased around in the area, and they're called the Rheinhessen-Bräu.
And then we have a question from Joao asking what is the best time to visit Mainz or Rheinhessen?
Well, nearly every season has its advantages and disadvantages. Probably the September is always very interesting because at that time the wine harvest is going on. Some of the wine estates say that they don't have time for tourist groups at that time because they're busy out in getting the harvest in, the wines in. So I would say the other side of the summer in May and June is probably the nicest one in terms of weather as well as temperatures. The summer itself is also very, very good. It just can be, especially in those days, that it can be quite hot. Mainz and Rheinhessen specifically is one of the warmest areas in Germany, and the temperatures can easily climb up to 35 or even 40 degrees. It's quite common actually. So I would say probably end of May, beginning of June is probably the most interesting period. On the other side, we have the winter, the winter period, which is very interesting. Then, of course, you don't see that much from the wine itself, but Mainz is a wonderful city for a Christmas market. And this is what is also very interesting in Germany. Of course, we have in nearly every city, we have a Christmas market, very romantic, wonderful to explore. So that could be an option as well.
Well, thank you, Matthias. I see maybe another question. Yeah.
Your microphone is shut off.
Oh, I was just mentioning that there is a new question on the question and answer.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, the question is, which are the requirements to arrive to Mainz for passengers outside the European community? Visa-wise, I guess.
Yeah, that's different from country to country. Usually, we have. I think you need a passport which needs to be 6 months valid. But I can't really go into detail because it's really different or different from country to country if visas are needed or not. Generally, of course, the EU countries can come in without any problem. But for other countries, we just need to check what the regulations are. But
I'm sorry, she was asking because of Corona. She's saying because of the pandemic, what are the restrictions or regulations now to visit Germany at the moment?
Changing constantly, basically. It's one of the things which are making travel a little bit difficult in Germany because we have federal states in the country, and each of the federal state is arranging different Corona regulations. And Mainz, for example, is neighboring to the capital of the federal state of Rhine and Palatinate. But if you cross the river, just so you just need to walk a couple of meters, and then you are in the federal state of Hessen, and they have different Corona regulations. So and it's changing all the time, constantly. But generally, I think at the moment we have quite low numbers, and I think, as far as I know, if you are able to exit your country, you can also get into ours. We don't have travel restrictions, too much travel restrictions at the moment. But I'm not 100% sure what the individual regulations are at the moment, I have to say.
Yes, it also depends from the country you come from, but if it's not labeled as a virus variant region or high risk region, then you can even come to Germany without any quarantine. And if it shall be a high-risk region, you would need to do a quarantine, unfortunately. Yes, but you also have better possibilities if you're vaccinated, as here vaccinated people have almost the same rights to travel as people who already had the illness or people who are tested.
Yeah, a list of the virus variant countries, as well as the different status countries, can be downloaded or seen at the web pages from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I'm more than happy to send a link around if you just let me know, and then we can check on an individual basis.
Okay, for now, no further questions as far as I can see. I would just share some contacts with you from Bilbao and Porto, who already did their presentation the last times.
Yeah, and I'm jumping in again, and just want to say thank you at the end of the presentation for joining. I also want to thank you very much for Catherine from Great Wine Capital for providing the platform and assisting us in setting up the webinar series. That is really very kind. And please, I want to say that you need to stay tuned on the Great Wine Capital webpage, because we are planning to continue with the webinars after the summer period, and information will follow via newsletter on the Great Wine Capital webpage. And here on the webpage, you can also find the recordings of the webinars which have happened so far, from Joao from Vinitour about Porto and the Douro Valley, as well as Carmen from Bilbao and Rioja, and Anne-Catherine has just provided the link for that. It's well worth to have a look if you haven't had the chance so far. So, all right, that's it then, and guten Abend from Mainz, and thank you very much for joining again, and I hand over back to Catherine.
Well, thank you, Matthias. Thank you so much for such an inspiring presentation. We really want to go now, and the good news among the series of pessimistic atmosphere is that our Great Wine Capital's annual conference will be in Mainz on the last week of October, next October, and we certainly hope that we will be able to welcome members and delegates from all our Great Wine Capitals. So let's cross fingers and hope that the virus will finally give up. And I think we will have a lot of fun to discover Mainz and the beautiful Rheinhessen region at that time of the year. So thank you all for attending. And as Matthias mentioned, the replay of this webinar will be available on our Great Wine Capital's website, but I think that Matthias will also send it out to all the participants, just in case. Thank you very much. Have a nice morning, day, evening. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.